Yeah.
Welcome to the CAHP Retirement Planning webinar. I'm Melissa Sullivan, the Communications Coordinator here at the Association, and presenting with me is Sherry Phoenix, our Labor Relations Specialist.
Hello.
Today, we're going to go over the basics of your CHP retirement, your lump sum cash outs, your service credit purchase options, your benefits in retirement, and much more. So on our website, we have all kinds of links and PDFs that you can go to and download. We'll be referring to many of those during our presentation. So those are good to have, especially if you're getting close to retirement. All right, ready? Let's get started. So the 3% at 50 retirement formula. So most members nearing retirement right now will be under this formula. And that just means that once you turn 50, you can retire and begin receiving 3% of your final compensation for every year of service credit you receive, up to a maximum of 90%. So this is a very simple way to do the math and get an idea of what your unmodified allowance might be in retirement. Here's an example. So Joe Smith is 50. He's got 25 years of service and his final compensation is $10,000. So 25 years times 3% per year, that's 75%. And he has got 75% of his $10,000. Even I can do that math, $7,500 a month. So that's what his unmodified retirement benefit will be. And we'll talk more about beneficiaries and survivors a little bit later in the meeting. But if Joe were to choose a beneficiary option when he retired, that $7,500 would be reduced to help pay for that. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation. Here is a little note on your final compensation. So the final compensation is your average of the highest 12 or 36 consecutive months of compensation. So for most of you, that's going to be your last 12 months. And just so you know, PLP does not affect final compensation. So even if you're getting close to retirement right now, the recent PLP reduction is not going to affect the numbers. So your last 12 months will likely be your highest 12 months. And it includes most pays and incentives on your regular check. So for example, the pre and post shift work, educational incentive pay, OIC, senior officer pay, bilingual, and even shift differential, which comes in a different check. That all is included in your final compensation. However, the uniform allowance, paramedic pay, investigator pay, there's a few things, overtime will not count towards your final compensation. So there's no need to work extra overtime at the end in order to help your retirement because it won't. How about that? Okay. So
Can I add something real quick?
You
Melissa?
sure can, Sherry.
So on the final compensation, some of you may have some other CalPERS employment that might be in a different formula. So that makes it a little bit more complicated. So that other CalPERS employment could be a different highest consecutive either 12 or 36 month average. So that can get a little more complicated when calculating your retirement benefits. So Melissa and myself might be able to help you with that, but it might be a good idea to get an estimate directly from CalPERS if you do have some other service credit formula besides your CHP service.
Thank you, Sherry. That's a good reminder. So Joe Smith is very simple, though. He's our example, and he just has CHP time. So here is a spreadsheet of his last year because he's going at the end of December 2021. And in May, you can see he's getting a senior officer increase. So he's got 4 months with the lower salary, the rest of the year with the higher salary. You add it all up, divide by 12. That's how we got that number of his final compensation of $10,000. So that's how you calculate that. And when you log into your CalPERS account to run estimates, it'll ask you what your final compensation is. So this is how you can figure out what that is. Okay. Anything else, Sherry?
Sure. So I think you mentioned it's calculated on a daily basis. So we get a lot of questions, Melissa and myself both get questions on the working 11 days. I don't know if you want to go into that, Melissa.
Oh, that's a good point. So because it is calculated on a daily basis, if you work, let's say you get your 11 working days in December, that means your highest 12 consecutive months would then be December of last year through your last day on payroll this year. So it's calculated on a daily basis. You don't get credit for the full month if you get that 11 working days in. So the 11 working days, just FYI, only means that you get your leave credits for that month. So you're not going to get a full paycheck for that month. You're not going to get full service credit for that month. You only get paid for what you work and service credit for what you work, but you do earn your leave credits for that month. So that's why a lot of people will make sure to get their 11 working days. RDOs don't count, just to make sure that they get that extra 31 hours at the end, or whatever. Although it is a qualifying pay period. So they're also, once you get your leave credits credited for that month, they're also going to take out your retirement contributions and your Medicare and all of that they wouldn't necessarily take out of your retirement check. So It may not be as big of a deal as people think to get that 11 working days there at the end.
Yes.
Okay. Speaking of leave credits, that was a nice segue. Mm-hmm. Okay, but let's talk about sick leave first. The first thing is there's no limit to the amount of sick leave you can earn. And sick leave doesn't get cashed out to you at retirement. It actually gets calculated as additional service credit towards your retirement. So it's not going to change what your retirement date is. So if you wanted to retire December 31st, that's your retirement date. If you have 2,000 hours of sick leave, which equals 1 year, then they'll tack that on right there at the end. It's not going to change your retirement date or anything. You just retire with an extra year of service credit than you otherwise would have had. Now, what you have to be careful of is because there's that 90% max, you don't want to physically work for, let's say, 29.8 years and then have a year worth of sick leave at the end, because any service credit above that 30 years is not going to count towards anything because you've already reached your 90%. Mm-hmm. So make sure your sick leave isn't going to push you over that 90% limit. Otherwise, it doesn't do you any good because it's not going to get cashed out. And then finally, if you have to retire for disability prior to age 50, you can burn off your unused sick leave prior to your retirement. So you can, that's really the only way you can burn it off before retirement. Okay, so let's talk about the leave credits you can cash out. So sick leave doesn't get cashed out. Holiday ITO does not get cashed out. So make sure you use that before retirement. But everything else is going to get cashed out to you. All of your annual or vacation leave, all the CTO, all the PLP, excess hours. So whatever you have in your account at the time of retirement will get cashed out to you.
Can I add a little something to that, Melissa?
Of course.
So that also includes the VPLP. The new 2020 PLP The language of that agreement on that new PLP bank is that you're supposed to use that before you use any of the other leave credits that get cashed out to you upon retirement. So if you are nearing retirement, in my mind, try to use up that holiday ITO if you have a significant leave balance, because that does not get cashed out to you. So try to use that up first if you can, and then work on your 2020 PLP. So ideally, they want you to burn the 2020 PLP bank off. If there's absolutely no way, shape, or form that you can burn that 2020 PLP bank off, that will get cashed out to you just like all the rest. But ideally, they would like you to have that burned off if possible. But if there's no way possible, it does get cashed out to you as well. So I just wanted to touch on that.
Thank you for the clarification, Sherry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's an example. We're going back to Joe Smith. He is in the vacation program. So he's got some vacation saved up. He's got some PLPs. It looks like he burned off his 2020 PLP, so he doesn't have any of that. But he's got some CTO. Altogether, he's got 759 hours of leave credits on the books when he retires. So everything's going to be cashed out to him at his hourly rate of retirement. But it gets a bit more complicated than that simple math. So let's move on to this example. So what CHP personnel does when they cash you out is they lay those hours out on a calendar as if you were working. So Joe Smith, his 759 hours, that's about 4 months of leave. And since he is in the sick leave program, he is earning 27 hours per month. Now, if he were in the annual leave, it'd be more like 31, but he's in the sick leave, so he earns 27 hours per month. So he's going to get 27 hours for each of those 4 months that he hasn't actually worked, tacked on. So that's an additional 108 hours. So really, he'd get cashed out for 867 hours. And he gets cashed out at his current hourly rate without the PLP. So it's whatever your rate of pay is without the PLP. Divide that by 173.33. That gets your hourly rate. That's what you'll be cashed out at.
And it's not based on final compensation. It's your pay at retirement. Yeah.
Yep. So if you get your last senior officer pay right there at the end, it'll all be cashed out to you at that higher rate of pay.
Mm-hmm.
So $52,000. That's what Joe's gonna walk away with. So here are your options, because there's a couple of things that you can do with your lump sum cash out. You can have CHP personnel write you a check. So they hand it to you. It's often combined with your last paycheck. So they just hand it over to you and you go off and do whatever you want with it. Now, from what I've heard, so CHP personnel is not going to take out the taxes at a higher tax rate. They are going to take out your regular taxes. And since all of that is income, if it bumps you up into another tax year, you could potentially be paying extra taxes on a portion of your income for that year. So there are a few other things that you can do. You can request that cash out be paid over 2 tax years. So if we go back, okay, Joe Smith has 4 months of leave. If any of those 4 months laid out on a calendar fall December 1st or later, he can have that portion cashed out to him in the following tax year. So if he's going at the end of December, then obviously all of it's going to be December 1st or later. So he could have CHP personnel hang on to that check, cash it out to him in 2022, and then it's on 2022's tax year instead of 2021. And so CHP personnel also, they have until February 1st to get you that check. So don't make any plans for it right away. You might have to wait a bit for that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a good option. If you do end up working a lot of overtime that last year and you've got, pretty good income, you can just have it on the following year's taxes. So you could do that, or you can send some of it to your deferred comp plan. So your 401k or 457. Normally, if you're under 50, the maximum you can contribute to those plans per year is $19,500. But once you turn 50, both of those plans, you can then do an extra $6,500 and do $26,000 per plan. Or with the 457, there's something called a traditional catch-up. So instead of doing the $26,000 for the age-based, you can double the $19,500 and do $39,000 if you can prove that you've under-contributed that $19,500 in the past, which most people have not been able to max out their 457 their whole career. So if you can, you have to apply for that ahead of time. So at least 3 months before your retirement. There's a form on the Savings Plus website and also on our website that you fill out and send to Savings Plus with copies of your W-2s proving that you've under contributed. And then they are going to give you an approval letter, which you'll keep a copy of that and send a copy to CHP personnel as you're nearing retirement. And then finally, you can do a combination of all of those. So you can take some money this year, you can take some money next year, you can send some of it to your 401k 457. So it's whatever you want to do. You might have a tax professional you can run this by and kind of see what the best options are for your situation. And
Can I add one more thing to that?
Of course, Sherry.
So on the deferrals, when they're deferring into the 401k 457 plan, state controllers actually has up to 2.5 months to defer that money into your account.
Yes.
So that may not happen right away as well, like Melissa mentioned on the deferrals for the next tax year.
Yes. So keep an eye on your account, but they do have a couple of months, up to 2.5. They don't usually take that long. But after that 2.5 month mark is when you can start worrying.
Mm-hmm. And then on the sorry, you haven't got to that.
That's okay.
Oops. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay, Sherry, because I think everybody is well aware that if you retire at the end of the year, so if you work at least one day in November and your retirement date is November 2nd through December 31st, you can tax shelter even more of your lump sum by putting it into your deferred comp accounts over 2 tax years. So you have the maximum contribution for the year you retire plus the maximum contribution for the following year. So that is a total of $130,000. Because Joe Smith had $52,000, but we all know people who never take vacations that have more than that. So you can tax shelter up to $130,000. And then you don't pay taxes on it until you start withdrawing it. Now, just a note about your 401k. There is a law now that you can, as uniformed peace officers, start withdrawing that at retirement at age 50 instead of age 57, like the rest of us have to do. There is a way to start making withdrawals penalty free before that, but you have to be careful about how you make that withdrawal. There's a box you have to check, and if you don't check that box, it can create problems later on when you go to do your taxes. So it might be worth a call to Savings Plus before you make the actual withdrawal in your 401k. No problem with the 457. You've always been able to make withdrawals at age 50 at retirement with that plan. But it might be a little tricky with the 401k.
Can I add one more thing? So
Yep.
Melissa touched on the 457 catch-up application that needs to be submitted 90 days prior, or we suggest 90 days. There's also a form that you need to submit to personnel 30 days in advance from Savings Plus called the Lump Sum Separation Pay Contribution Election Form. So ideally, personnel wants a 30-day notice on that if you do want to tax shelter any of this money. So that's kind of a big deal. If you're doing this all very, very last minute, you have to, per the labor code, give them at least a 5-day notice on that deferral if you're going to defer any of your money. If you can't give them 5 days, it's all going to get cashed out to you whether you like it or not.
Yeah, and it's five working days.
Yes, thank you.
So, yep. Okay. Thank you, Sherry. And all of those forms are on our website. And if you sign up for our retirement reminder emails, we email those to you. So there's several options on how to get that form. Okay, Sherry, I am turning the floor over to you.
Thank you. All right, so let's talk about service credit purchase options. So most of you are probably aware that the airtime, the additional retirement service credit, is no longer available to purchase. Maybe some of you out there purchased it way back when are going to benefit from that. But here are the service credit purchase options that are still available today. Military time. So if you, while working for the CHP, you were deployed to active duty, you can have that time, in most cases, restored to you at no cost. When you return from military leave, CHP personnel should send you a form from CalPERS that's called the Request for Military Leave of Absence Service Credit Form. You're going to need to fill that out and submit that to CalPERS to get that active duty deployment returned, that service credit returned to you. So it's not automatic. You're going to actually have to take action and request that that time be restored to you. And then any service, military service prior to your CHP time. So if you served in the active military prior to CalPERS service, you can purchase up to 4 years of military time. So there's a form on the CalPERS website called the Request for Service Credit Cost Information that you will have to submit to CalPERS to get an official estimate. You can even go on the CalPERS website. I believe they want you to do this ahead of time anyways. Go on the CalPERS website and run a cost calculation on their service credit cost calculator to find out what that cost might be for you. So again, you can buy up to 4 years. You can buy 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. You can buy 3 years today, 1 year later on. But the younger you purchase, that you initiate the purchase, the less expensive that will be. So it's based on your pay at the time of purchase. So keep that in mind. Military time is the one and only type of service credit that you can purchase in retirement. All the others you have to purchase prior to. So keep that in mind. Again, the younger you purchase that, the cheaper it will be. So if you're waiting to the end of your career, that cost is quite expensive right now. And then any leave of absence. So any type of time that you lost due to, for example, an unpaid leave of absence, a temporary disability, if you were off on temporary disability, unpaid time off due to a non-industrial injury, parental leave, you can make this purchase. Again, you have to coordinate this prior to your retirement. The younger you are, the less expensive that will be, just like the military time. So that's another type of leave credit. And then moving on, another type of service credit purchase option is a redeposit of withdrawn contributions. So if, for example, you lost time in a divorce and your ex-spouse, instead of waiting to take a monthly lifetime benefit, they chose to cash out and take a lump sum amount, you can buy that time back. And we highly recommend you do that if that's the case. It's less expensive than the other type of service credit purchases. In this case, you are simply paying back the employee contribution. So your ex-spouse only gets the employee contributions. They don't get any of the employer paid money. So if you think about it right now, you're contributing 11.5% to your retirement. I believe the state's contributing around 57%. So you can imagine, there's a couple of pots of money there. So they're only getting your portion of the employee paid money. So you're simply replenishing that money, maybe plus a little bit of interest. So this is usually very cost effective. So if this happens for you, we highly recommend you consider purchasing that time. CalPERS is supposed to notify you if your ex-spouse has cashed out. So you should be getting a letter or an email from them. But if you're not sure and you're curious, call them and find out. Again, you have to make this purchase, coordinate this purchase prior to your retirement. You cannot purchase this time in retirement. So be aware of that. Another type of service credit that you can purchase is any prior CalPERS membership. So if you previously worked for another CalPERS employer prior to your CHP service and you took a refund of your contributions, you can purchase that time back. So again, you're just redepositing those funds. It's again just the employee portion that you're paying back. You're not, that employer portion still sitting in that big pot of money over at CalPERS. So you're just replenishing that refund plus some interest, right? So however long it's been. This goes for any seasonal or part-time work. So if you're working as a lifeguard or Parks and Rec, it might be worth looking at because it will boost your retirement benefits. So definitely something to consider. Then moving on, here are the different ways to pay for your service credit. You can write a check. That's, of course, after tax money. You can make monthly payments up to 15 years. That would include some interest. So keep that in mind. You can choose to make those payments pre-tax or post-tax. With pre-tax payments, you're stuck with those payments until it is paid off or until you retire someday. With post-tax payments, you can pay that time off at any time. So if you come into a large sum of money for some reason, you can choose to pay that off if you set that up as a post-tax payment. And then you can also transfer money from your deferred comp account. So if you've got money in your 401k or 457 plan, you can do a coordinated direct rollover from the one retirement plan to CalPERS to make that purchase. If you've already coordinated service credit purchase and you're approaching retirement, you have a couple of options. So if you do nothing, your remaining monthly payments will be deducted from your retirement check, and that will be on an after-tax basis. So if you set them up as pre-tax, that will convert over to an after-tax basis. Or the other option at retirement is you can pay off your service credit using either cash that you have on hand or money from your deferred comp account. So you might consider rolling some of your money into your 401k or 457 plan, like Melissa mentioned. And then you can turn around and pay that off or pay it down and reduce those monthly payments. So there is a new rule, I guess. I don't know for every other one. So if you purchase time after January 1 of 2020, you must have that purchase paid off at retirement. If not, your monthly benefit will be reduced by an actuarial equivalent of the unpaid balance. So it's a little bit different for those of you who've already purchased time and made that purchase, coordinated that purchase prior to January 1 of 2020. So things have changed with CalPERS, new law. So just keep that in mind if you're considering a purchase now, that you're going to have that time ideally paid off before you retire. Okay, moving on. Do you have anything to add to that, Melissa?
I've got nothing. You covered it very well, Sherry.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so divorce and retirement. So this never happens, right? So divorce while you're working. If you've divorced and your ex-spouse was awarded a portion of your retirement, CalPERS will need a copy of your court order, and we recommend you get that to them as soon as you can. CalPERS is very particular about the language that they want on the community property division of your retirement. So we recommend you submit that as soon as possible. CalPERS may have you redo that if it's not written exactly how they want it. They have some publications on their website that I'd recommend that you look at. They have model language, so they actually have the legal language all spelled out for you, how you can set that community property division up in your court order. There are a couple of models. There's a Model A and a Model B for active employees, so something to look at. They actually have a whole booklet on community property, so be worth taking a look at. We definitely have some ideas on what might be in your best interest as the member. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Melissa or myself if you have questions on that. If you're already divorced, make sure CalPERS has that again has that court order on file well before you plan to retire someday. If you don't have that information on file with CalPERS, they can hold your retirement until you've got that information or that court order on file exactly the way they want it written. So be wary of that. Be cautious and make sure they have that well before you decide to retire. And then there have been some occasions in the past where there has been a divorce in your past where maybe the ex-spouse called CalPERS and said, wait a minute, I think I'm due something. And they put a hold on your account or at least only give you half until they've got it all cleared up. So I highly recommend getting that taken care of. If there is no community property division, CalPERS isn't going to go looking through your through your past to find out if some exes due some money. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that. And then divorce and retirement. So like it says here, can be extremely complicated and can have huge implications for you as the member. So we wouldn't recommend it if I hate to say this, but if you're considering divorce, it's definitely much cleaner to do it while you're actively employed. Again, CalPERS has some model language on their website, and there's a Model C that's specific to retirement. And I guess that's all I'll say about that. But definitely, if you have questions on this, please feel free to reach out to Melissa or myself. We're very familiar with the different types of community property division when it comes to divorce. The other option, right? You could, if you both agree that your spouse gets none of your retirement, good for you. And that's also an option, right? But normally they get half. So just keep that in mind. We live in California and it's a community property state. So there you go. All right.
Okay. All right. Okay. So my turn again, I think, Sherry.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about survivors and beneficiaries. So these are both benefits that you can leave someone if something happens to you in retirement. So the survivor portion is a state benefit. So that's paid for by your employer, and it can only go to certain people. So it goes to a spouse or a registered domestic partner that you've been married to for at least a year prior to retirement, or kids under the age of 18, or disabled children, or if none, economically dependent parents. So that benefit is going to be equal to 1/2 of your unmodified allowance. So no matter what option you choose, your spouse is going to get at least 1/2 of your retirement if something happens to you, based on CHP time. Survivor benefits, if you have a different formula, might be a little bit different. So that's also a scenario where you might want to contact CalPERS and get a more official estimate. Or often they that will be included if you log on to CalPERS. They'll be able to calculate that for you. And then a separate benefit is the beneficiary benefit. Now, often people will choose their spouse, who is the survivor, to also be their beneficiary. And then if you do that, CalPERS will reduce your monthly payment to help pay for that part. So if you want your spouse to get half of your retirement, you can choose maybe the unmodified, or there's a 75% option or 100% option. So once you log on to CalPERS and start running those estimates, you can figure out what benefit is best for both of you. And anything else about that, Sherry?
Nope.
So that's just the basics on that.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's start talking a little bit about net pay. So this is usually what people are most interested in because all of the estimates that you do on the CalPERS website are gross. Mm-hmm. So what you can do is you can take a look at your active paycheck and start crossing off some things, because there are quite a few things that are being taken out of your retirement check now that won't be taken out in retirement. One of the big ones is your retirement contribution. So you won't be paying into your own retirement anymore. You won't be paying into your Medicare tax. Any deferred compensation contributions, your 401k, 457, those go away. And then there's a couple of other little deductions too that end. And then per survivor, yes, thank you, Sherry. And then the good news is since the state pays more towards retiree healthcare, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later, than they do for active healthcare, your out-of-pocket costs for health benefits may go down. So, for example, our plan right now for a family plan as an active member, it's $340 something for a family plan. When you retire, it goes down to about $14. So, that's a pretty good savings there. CHP dues right now, to be part of the association, which you have to be in order to get the health benefits, you're paying about $59 right now. When you retire, that goes down to $7.50. Or if you've been a member for at least 25 years while on duty, then you will qualify for life membership, and we won't make you pay that $7.50. We'll let you donate it if you really want to, but we're not going to make you pay it. And then if you have to industrial disability retire, then there are some taxes that won't be taken out of your check. So you might save in taxes if you have to industrial disability retire. Okay, so we like our examples. Here's an example of Joe Smith's regular salary versus his retirement. So in this scenario, he's got about 28 years of service. You've got all of the deductions over on the left-hand side, the taxes, the retirement contributions, Medicare tax, health benefits, all of that coming out, and you've got a net income of $7,082. Well, on the right-hand side, we have the same amount of taxes coming out, a couple of zeros here. CHP dues, $750, the health benefits, dental, his net income in retirement, $71.59. So he's kind of breaking even at this point. Now, all of this, of course, depends on a few factors. So it depends on what beneficiary option you choose. So if Joe chose the unmodified allowance, of course, his net income would be more. If he had not been contributing to his 457 over on the left-hand side, then there wouldn't be that $300 difference between the two. So you can see it kind of depends. It's different for everybody on what your net pay might look like when you retire. But that's just kind of the basics on how to do it. If you want to, go ahead, Sherry.
Can I just add a little something to this? So,
of course.
Notice on the left side, Joe Smith's gross salary, right, is quite a bit more than gross from retirement. But what's interesting is while you're actively employed, you've got a lot of pre-tax deductions coming out, right?
Thank you, Sherry.
Yeah, the retirement contribution, the 457 plan, the health, the dental. In retirement, it's all taxable, right? Unless there's a disability retirement involved. So that $8,500 is all taxable income. So you could probably take a look at your current pay stub and look at what your taxable gross is, not the gross, but the taxable gross, and compare that to what your retirement option might look like. And if that's pretty similar, you might net about what that's kind of been my experience these days. Look at that taxable gross instead of the 10,400 number, your actual, what you're paying taxes on, and take a look at that.
Thank you, Sherry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so moving on from net pay, benefits in retirement. I think this is you, Sherry.
That's me. Okay. So in most cases, you're eligible for health benefits in retirement for both you and your dependents, kids until they're 26, if you are vested for those benefits. So the same health benefits that you have right now as an active employee will automatically continue in retirement. You do not have to take any action. So most of you who are reaching retirement age these days and you have 20 years of state service, 20 years is being fully vested, you will get 100% of the state's contribution towards your health care. So that doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to pay anything for your health care in retirement, but you're still going to get 100% of the state's contribution towards that health care, just like you do now. And like Melissa, and then going back to the vesting, if you retired, for example, with only 19 years on, you're still going to be eligible for health care in retirement. It's just you won't be fully vested. So at 19 years of state service, for example, you'd get 95% of the state's contribution. If you retire with 18 years on, it's 90%, and so on. So you're actually vested at 10 years, and then it goes up in 5% increments, but beyond that. The purchase of service credit, by the way, has no bearing on your vesting. So that is not going to help get you to the 20-year vesting. And the sick leave as well is not going to qualify for additional service credit. So you actually have to have 20 physical years, day one in the academy, or if you had prior state service elsewhere, 20 physical years of state service in order to be fully vested for your health benefits. And then one thing I just want to mention here, I know both Melissa and I have been getting a lot of questions, it seems like this last year, regarding retiring before age 50. Well, you can't retire before age 50, right? You could resign, for example, at 49 and collect a monthly lifetime benefit, but you are not going to be eligible for your health benefits in retirement because of that 120 days that you see in that first bullet point. So you cannot have more than 120 days from your date of separation, whatever that is, and your retirement date, and be eligible for benefits. So you want to be really careful with that. You got to get to 50 somehow, some way. And of course, if, God forbid you had to disability retire, the vesting schedule doesn't apply. If you can't get to 50 and you're having to disability retire, you do not have to worry whatsoever about vesting, right? You're going to be eligible for your benefits in retirement if you can't get to 50 and had to disability retire.
Yep. And the 20 years, even if you have 20 years and you resign before the age of 50, you still are not going to get health benefits in retirement. It doesn't matter if you have 20 years of state service. If you don't retire or at least make it to within 120 days of your
right. Four months
say,
before your 50th birthday. Yeah.
4 months before your 50th birthday. Then you're not going to get health benefits in retirement. And then, Sherry, can I point out one other thing about the 120 days?
Absolutely.
So lots of people are considering, especially people, let's say, who have birthdays in January. So they've got a lot of leave credits. They are turning 50 in January, but they want to take advantage of the leave credit cash out over the 2 tax years and putting it into their 401k 457. And they think, okay, well, I'll just, because I can still get health benefits, I will resign in December and start collecting retirement in January, which is all well and good. You can do that. But you can't maintain your membership with the association if you do that.
Yes.
So only retired members can maintain their membership. So you can't have our health benefits.
Right.
You can have health benefits, just not ours. And then you're considered a resigned employee, not a retired employee.
Exactly. Right. So both the Highway Patrol will see you as resigned as well as the association.
Yes.
Yep. Good point.
Okay.
So moving on. So our CHP Health Benefits Trust Plan, as Melissa mentioned, the 2021 out-of-pocket costs for retirees. So what's interesting is the state contributes more towards your health care and retirement than they do while you're actively employed, which sounds strange, but it's true. So our health plan for a family, the monthly premium right now in retirement, if you're fully vested, you've got your 20 years on plus, is $14.31. And then it is a zero out-of-pocket cost for a one-party or a two-party plan. And that could always change in the future, right? Our rates can go up. In the future, the state's contribution can go up or go down. What happened this year with the active employees is our rates went up. So did all the other health plans this year. But what happened is the state's contribution, from what I understand, actually went backwards a little bit. So that's why you saw a significant increase in your active premium for health and all the plans, including Kaiser. They all went up this year because of the state's contribution going backwards. But in retirement, the state's contribution went up. Our health plan went up a little bit, but your monthly out-of-pocket cost is still pretty reasonable, $14.31 for a family plan. Last year it was zero. This year it's $14, but that I would say is pretty reasonable. And then if you are with our health plan and you move out of state in retirement, we highly recommend you choose another health plan. Our health plan is a California-based network of doctors, and it isn't going to work well for you living out of state. Currently, in state, it pays at a 90-10 rate. If you're to move out of state, the plan only pays at a 60-40 rate. And I believe if you call CalPERS, they'll tell you you can have our plan in retirement if you move. And you can, doesn't make sense to keep our plan because it's only going to pay at that 60-40 rate. There are 3 other health plans currently through CalPERS that do work well out of state. There is a Kaiser out of state plan. That's not inexpensive. There is a PERS Care and a PERS Choice plan. We normally recommend the PERS Choice plan. It's the most like our plan. If you have our plan, the PPO, it's the most reasonably priced. I think it's about $271 out of pocket for a family plan right now if you're moving out of state. I know a lot of our folks like to move out of state, and a lot of them move out of state to states like Nevada or Texas or Florida where you're paying no state income tax, and that's all fine and good, but guess what? You're going to pay a little bit more for your healthcare moving out of state. So it could just, be a wash as far as saving some money on your income tax in retirement. So, keep that in mind when you're planning your retirement. If you do move out of state, don't keep our plan. Choose another plan, and just keep an eye on that. Those are the 3 plans that currently work in retirement. Keep an eye on that every year during open enrollment. See See if there's something new out there. See what the health plan rates are. PERS Choice right now is the most reasonably priced. See if things change every year. And then if you were hired after January 1 of 1994 and you want our health plan in retirement, you must have our health plan for at least 5 years. So there is a 5-year vesting with our health plan. So you need to have it while you're actively employed for at least 5 years if you want our plan in retirement. And then most of you are paying into Medicare. You'll see that as a deduction on your check. You were going to qualify for Medicare at age 65. And let's say you have our health plan at that point. Medicare becomes your primary insurance. The CHP Anthem Blue Cross plan becomes the supplemental. The two will work together. If you are living out of state and you've picked up that PERS Choice plan, for example, so if you're married and both you and your spouse are Medicare age, when you're both 65, you can come back to our plan while you're living out of state. Once Medicare becomes primary, our plan, the Anthem Blue Cross plan, will work living out of state when Medicare is primary for both of you. I think I got that. Okay.
Yes, you did.
And then, so like I mentioned, health benefits are automatic. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to take any action. Enrollment in a dental and vision plan are not automatic. You will have to take action. So the CHP benefits unit will mail you a packet of information regarding your retiree benefits. So that should come to your home. Be on the lookout for that. If it doesn't come before you retire, don't let it go more than 30 days into retirement. If you're 30 days in and you haven't received that packet, we recommend you follow up with a phone call. Call your personnel specialist at Human Resources. Let them know you haven't received that packet, and you need to get that done before you hit 60 days into retirement, or there could be a lapse. So be on the lookout for that. Make sure you get re-enrolled. You can choose our dental plan in retirement. So if you have our dental plan right now as an active employee, it's the same premium in retirement. You will have to take action and re-enroll. We also have you sign a form that's in that benefits packet saying that you're going to stick with our plan forever and ever. If you don't choose our dental plan, you cannot come back to our dental plan at a later date. So it's a one-time election to choose our plan or not, totally up to you. Our dental plan does work outside of California, so keep that in mind. Unlike our health plan, it does work. You have some other options in retirement that you do have that you can enroll in. The supervisors and managers that are listening in here, I know you have an enhanced Delta plan provided to you by the state. That plan is not offered to you in retirement, so you might consider coming back to our plan. So we've got some information on our plan compared to the other plans, a side-by-side comparison if you're interested. And we can provide that to you at a later date. And then vision, if you want the vision coverage, you have to pay the full cost of the premium. So be aware of that. There's no state contribution. The vision coverage for the basic coverage right now, I think, is $13.31 for a family, and about $36.99 for the Premier plan. So you can continue Premier, but again, keep in mind you're paying the full cost of the premium. There's no state contribution for vision, and again, you're going to have to re-enroll. It's not automatic. Same is true on your ARAG if you're paying that prepaid legal services program. It's a state-sponsored program. You'll have to re-enroll, and I believe that's in this packet as well. All right. Anything else on that, Melissa? You can
I think you got it, Sherry. You're doing great.
Okay, thanks. And then some other things in retirement. You're going to get a cost of living adjustment. Woohoo! You get a pay raise in retirement. So under CalPERS law, you will be eligible for your first cost of living adjustment, and yours is up to 2% on the May 1st following your first full calendar year of retirement. So we're talking about January 1 through December 31st. So let's say, for example, you're going to retire this December of 2021. January 1 through December 31st of 2022 would be your first full calendar year of retirement. And then come May 1 of 2023 is when you will be eligible for your very first COLA. And then every May 1st following that, every May 1st following. So keep in mind it's up to 2%. That is based on, the COLA is based on the consumer price index. It's based on what's going on with inflation. So there is a universe, it could be something less than 2%. And just for an example, this year it's 1.23%. It isn't 2%. Last year it was 1.81. The year before that it was 2. So you never know. And so usually February of each year, we know what that COLA is going to be. CalPERS will announce that. So you'll kind of know what's coming on May 1. And then this is if you're considering retiring in January, we highly recommend you not do that. Retire in December. If you're on the fence between December and January, generally December is a better date to go, simply to get that COLA a little bit sooner, right? January, if you retire in January, you're going to have to wait another almost full year for that COLA to kick in. And just a word of caution on when you're filling out your retirement application, there are two questions about your retirement date on that application. What's your last day of employment and what's your retirement date? So you want to be really careful. You're going right to the bitter end of the year. Make sure you do not work beyond December 30th and that your retirement date is December 31st. If for some reason you plug in December 31st, you decide to work that day, January 1 will automatically become your retirement date, and you're going to miss out on that COLA just by by retiring in January. So be cautious, be wary of that. If you're looking at June, I wouldn't worry about it, or mid-year, I wouldn't worry so much about it. But just the January versus December date, be careful about that on the COLA. Generally makes sense to go in December. And then, especially if you've got a large leave credit cash out, like Melissa previously mentioned, December, there's probably a good day to go to split that cash out over 2 tax years as well. And then there's another benefit in retirement that you may be eligible for. It's called the Purchasing Power Protection Allowance. It's a tongue twister, 3PA for short. This benefit will automatically kick in if your retirement allowance ever falls below 75% of your original purchasing power. So let's just say you're getting your 2% COLAs every year and inflation is just going through the roof and you dip down below the 75%. This 3PA benefit will kick in along with your COLA on May 1st automatically to keep you up with that original purchasing power, or at least up to 75% of the original purchasing power. And this might take 30 years or more for it to kick in. Maybe it never kicks in for you. Definitely our members who retired prior to the 3 at 50 formula are benefiting from this for sure. But for those of you in the 3 at 50 formula retiring with, quite a bit of service credit, it might take a while for this to kick in. I think that's enough about that. And then some other considerations, Social Security. So if you, prior to your CHP service, or if you worked on the side and paid into Social Security, if you qualify for Social Security, there is a provision called the windfall elimination provision that will unfortunately affect your Social Security benefit. And so we tell our members to expect about a third of whatever Social Security is estimating that you might receive. So keep that in mind. So right now, Social Security has no knowledge of your time on with the department because you don't pay into Social Security. And so all they know about is your previous employment or whatever you're doing on the side. So they're promising you this inflated benefit right now based on only what they know. When you retire, all of your earnings are reported to Social Security, and they'll see that, holy cow, this employee actually worked for 25 years or more, whatever, and was actually making a pretty good salary and is getting a pension on top of that, they'll recalculate that benefit based on all this new earnings information. So they'll know. So again, keep in mind it will be reduced significantly by about 2/3. So keep that in mind. And then working in retirement, you want to be really cautious about what you do. You can go work in the private sector all you want, make as much money as you want. CalPERS doesn't care. If you retire on a disability and you go to work for another CalPERS employer in retirement, you absolutely have to get CalPERS blessing on that. You have to get their permission to actually do that. And then if you do disability retire and you want to go to work in something other than CalPERS employment, you just want to be really cautious about what you're doing, right? You don't want to go out there and do something that you told CalPERS. You're probably not going to want to go, you're not going to want to go to work in law enforcement. And you don't want to go out there and do something you told CalPERS you couldn't be doing. And a good example that we like to give is if you've got a lower back injury, right? That's a presumptive injury, and you're having to retire, and you tell CalPERS, I can't sit for more than 8.5 hours in a patrol car every day, and you go off and become a long haul truck driver, and you're driving 12 hours a day or more, and they find out about it, they might have an issue with that, and there is a possibility they could take that benefit away from you. So just be careful of that. And then if you service retire and you want to go to work for another CalPERS employer, be careful, stay away from it if you can, but if you can't, you can only work as a retired annuitant, only in that capacity. You can only work 960 hours per fiscal year, so meaning July 1 through June 30th. If you go over the hours, or if you are not working in that capacity, you could get yourself into some big trouble. And CalPERS can take a portion of your retirement away. They can cancel your benefits in retirement. It can get really ugly. So be really careful with that. Make sure you're lawfully employed. If you're not sure if it's a CalPERS employer, reach out to CalPERS. Make sure, before you accept that new employment, be careful. And again, retired annuitant status only.
Yes. Okay. All right. Moving along, how to calculate your retirement. And we actually have posted on our website a link to a CalPERS video that will walk you through all of the benefit options. So you can always take a look at that. But basically, you just want to log on to your CalPERS account, click on retirement estimate calculator, and then just go through this series of questions. So your date of retirement, the amount of sick leave you have, your final compensation, and then if you have someone, a spouse or someone you want to name as your beneficiary, put their birth date in there. And then when you get to that last page, it'll show, if you've got a survivor and a beneficiary, and they're the same person, if that's both your spouse. You have to add those two columns together to see what they would get if something happens to you. So just kind of look at those options. And then if you're within 1 year of retirement, you can request that CalPERS give you a more official CalPERS estimate. And you find that form in the retirement application itself. That form isn't necessary, but if you have time with a different employer and a different retirement formula, it might be worth it to fill that out, because they'll be able to figure out, if that other employer goes by the highest 12 months or 36 months. So it'd be helpful if you have different time in another formula.
Or if you've lost time in a divorce, that would be another good suggestion, to get an estimate from CalPERS as well.
Exactly. Thank you, Sherry. So that's just the basics on how to do your calculations on CalPERS. And then Sherry and I, there's our email addresses if you want to send us an email if you have questions. If you want to sign up for the retirement reminder emails, you can email us with your name, personal email address, badge number, and retirement date, and we will start emailing you 6 months before your retirement date, just giving you a heads up on what needs to be done. The main date you have to worry about is the 120 days before retirement is when you actually apply for retirement through CalPERS. So as the association, there's not actually a whole lot you have to do with us, but there's a few other entities you have to deal with, mainly CalPERS, Savings Plus, CHP personnel. So we'll give you a heads up on who to contact and when. I think that's about it. Sherry, do you have anything else?
Nope.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for listening to our webinar. Hopefully it's been helpful.
Yes.
And then, Sherry, I think you have the click off button on your side.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.